All right, so this is big news coming off the heels of the Detroit Lions hiring Dre Bly as defensive back coach. Now, let's be clear. We need a running back coach. Barry Sanders is not going to be him. Okay, I just had to throw that out there before I forgot. Barry Sanders has no interest in coaching. Okay, so let's throw that out. But there's another Detroit Lion great who also had to have his relationship and is in the process of repairing that relationship with the Detroit Lions. This comes out 5 minutes ago from my guy, Brad, I don't like Jared Goff Behrman, that Calvin Johnson hints at a reconciliation with the Detroit Lions. It is about time. Now, I got a story to tell y'all about this very thing. In 2019, when it came out about the money, right? Now, if you don't know, the Detroit Lions, when Calvin Johnson retired, they asked for $1.6 million in signing bonus money back, okay? Now, when I first heard this, back in 2019, I was Team Lions because I'm of the mindset you got paid, you didn't do that job, and you don't deserve the money. So give it back. And nothing was going to change my mind. I then proceed to see a video by Flimlo Raps, the great YouTuber, who is a phenomenal storyteller. And he did a piece on Calvin Johnson. And I watched it. And I found out what Calvin Johnson, not only what he had to go through, but what he went through to play this game. What he went through to play the game for the Detroit Lions. My thought was, when it came to Calvin, you know the fans love you. You up there with Barry Sanders, bro. And no Detroit Lion is on Barry Sanders' level except Calvin Johnson. It would be Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson. So maybe 1 and 2, maybe A and B. I know y'all love Stafford. I don't think Stafford is on that level. He did a lot of great things in the city, but I don't think Stafford would be, to me, a distant third. But when you talk about, and I think part of that is because both of these guys wanted to leave the team, and the team did not let them, so they retired. Barry retired 1999, the day before training camp. Calvin retired in 2016. He's in the Football Hall of Fame. Right? So that changed my mind. So Calvin Johnson has said that he's not doing anything for the Detroit Lions unless he gets all of his money. Not over time. He wants all of his money. Now, for those of you who don't know, they cannot just pay Calvin Johnson. They have to go through a situation. Like, it affects things. So they can't just pay Calvin Johnson. But this is what he said matter of fact, this morning on the New York Post. We're trending up. This is coming from Calvin Johnson. We're trying to come together and make something happen. Johnson, a 2021 Hall of Fame inductee, said, obviously, I love to be around the team and do more things there and help the guys out. It's good that we're moving in the right direction. Asked specifically about the money, he declined to elaborate. Quote, like I said, we're in the process. That is fantastic. If you caught, I forgot what podcast he was on. Richard Sherman, that's what it was. About 2 months ago, it was during the season, Richard Sherman asked about the Detroit Lions and reconciliation, and for the first time, I heard Calvin Johnson say he wanted to be around. Now, for those of you who weren't around at the time or are too young, the stuff between Barry Sanders and the Detroit Lions was terrible. It was terrible. It was a sad thing to see. And over time, they worked that together. Oh, how could I forget about Jason Hanson? Thank you, Durham. Can't forget about Jason. Over time, they worked it out, and Barry became an ambassador. Now, Calvin, I think Calvin wants to be involved with the players. This is coming from last summer. Johnson said he wants to mentor Jameson Williams. Now, if I am Sheila Hamp, I'm talking to all the financial guys, and I'm saying, you tell me how we get this money to this young man. One of the, if not the greatest Detroit Lions wide receiver. As a matter of fact, the greatest Detroit Lions wide receiver of all time wants to mentor, which means he wants to be involved in the team. You get him here. Could you imagine Calvin Johnson? I'm not saying a coach, the wide receivers coach. We got a guy. I'm saying somebody. Calvin Johnson back in Lions wear would be fantastic. Seeing him with the Lions logo, he only played for the Detroit Lions. Now, he wanted out. We wouldn't let him go. One thing I can say about Calvin Johnson is Calvin Johnson has never backed down. He said, you have to pay me everything at the same time. The Detroit Lions did offer installments, and he said no. And I'm not mad at Calvin Johnson because Calvin Johnson knows his worth, and he's sticking by it. As a matter of fact, that's the motivation quote for today. Know your worth, people. Know your worth and accept nothing less. Now, Hyundai says, can't we just sign him to a one-day contract? Mr. Poole says, Calvin wants to help with rehabbing players and mentoring the rookies. And I think that's fantastic. Because as much as we love Jameson Williams is 21 years old. And you could see 21, you could see the immaturity all over him. Right? You could see it. I love me some J-Mo. I love me some J-Mo, man. He's going to be fantastic for this team. But you can see the growth. And imagine having a mentor, the greatest wide receiver in Detroit Lions history, to mentor you. Now, from what I understand, this money cannot be just paid to Calvin Johnson. It counts maybe against the cap. I don't know. Calvin Johnson retired. And when he retired, the Lions asked for the signing bonus back. He gave it back all at one time. Therefore, he wants it back all at one time. But they can't. It came out a few years ago that they cannot just give him the money. They have to go through the proper channels. But I'm assuming the same way he gave it to them, they can figure out a way to get it back. They asked for it. It's got to be a way you get this money back to him. Nick thinks it has something to do with, Nick, are you saying it has something to do with his side business? Now, again, I was pro Detroit Lions. I was all on Team Lions until I found out, because I just thought Calvin was being selfish. I thought he wasn't thinking about the fans. Because let's be real, Calvin, his ability is fantastic, but Lions fans love Calvin Johnson, bro. I would turn on the TV to watch Calvin Johnson. When we went 0-8, 0-16 in 2008, Calvin Johnson was why you were watching, right? So the Detroit Lions have an opportunity here. Things have been trending more positive lately, but to have Johnson talk about his relationship with the Lions in any spot of positive terms is certainly a good thing. Time will tell if it goes anywhere meaningful from here. My thing is this. Here, if I'm Sheila Hamp, I'm saying we have to get this man at training camp. Whatever we need to do, we got 4 months to do it. Make it happen. Money is not the issue. I think for the longest time, both sides refused to back down. Now, remember, when Calvin retired, Sheila's mother was still running the franchise. Well, publicly anyway. So let me know. This got to happen to me. We have to make this happen. So let me know your thoughts on Calvin Johnson. He does not talk about, and I'll just say this, that really, I'm older than Calvin Johnson. And when Ford Field was booing Sheila, I thought that was the most ridiculous thing of all time. And to see Calvin trying, when he got his Hall of Fame jacket, knowing that he and the organization are not on the best terms, try to get the crowd to not do that. That was fantastic. And I really appreciate that from Calvin. I'm raised the same way. So let me know what you think, man. Calvin Johnson, how good would it be to have him back in the fold?